available anywhere, and you can find it at StarWarsFanWars.com/timeline. You can also hear the two podcasts I'm involved with, the Legends and Canon Story Discussion podcast, Star Wars Beyond the Films, which I host with Mark Herleman, or the Star Wars Gaming podcast, which I also host with Michael Morris, which is called Cloud City Casino, both of which can be found at StarWarsReport.com. Okay, so on my vlog, The Voice of Reason or Lack Thereof, coming up soon, I believe it'll be episode number 9, that later this week I'll be giving you basically my in-depth thoughts on Rogue One with some specifics. And of course, that'll be a topic of conversation, I'm sure, whenever Cloud City Casino comes back sometime, hopefully before the beginning of the new year. Michael's being slammed by his work schedule right now, but hopefully after Christmas that will calm down. And obviously, Rogue One will be a major topic of discussion, both in relation to the film, but also into the expansion stuff, like the novels and Catalyst and whatnot tied into it. Sometime after our, hey Cypher, sometime after the year in review stuff is done. We got one more year in review episode to record. I think it's 3 to release. But I figured I'd hop on here just in case there was any, any desire to talk some Rogue One stuff. I'm actually going to jump into Scarif, because one of the things I wanted to get into, for those who are playing Battlefront or who are watching these, because they're waiting to get to play Scarif sometime in the near future. When the season pass holders exclusive period is up and anyone can pick it up, I want to give you a chance, I want to get a chance to sort of dig into how the mode actually does or does not reflect the film itself, and why that may be in this case here. So we're searching for Scarif matches here, and we're on Turning Point. Alright, so this is one of the film locations here, of course. Landing pad 13. What's interesting, I think, about this is, as far as the setting is they did a pretty good job recreating the setting. Like, you could see certain elements when you're watching the film, like see the layout, for instance, of, crates and whatnot strewn across the landing pads. And when you're playing a game, it's easy to say, oh, well, there's just a whole bunch of crates and stuff. That's just obstacles so that there's cover, and it just enhances the gameplay. But you see that actually a lot within the game, within the film itself. Characters taking cover behind the various crates and boxes and stuff like this. So it's pretty cool to see that reflected well. For what it's worth, blown up here by a U-Wing. I guess I should point out that I'm at the point where right now it's just a matter really of just grinding, as I have finished up all of those HUT contracts that came out with the new DLC, which we can get to here in a second. Once I do at least one mode of infiltration, we can talk about, best approaches to trying to get them killed by a gunship again. Which is interesting, because I think that's only happened once prior to today, and now it's like, bam, bam, you're dead. I am using right here, by the way, I forget what it's even called, but it's the Krennic pistol, where if you're playing actually as Krennic, you've got the gun here. And for what it's worth, by the way, notice the spoiler warning down at the, well, where's it? Yeah, down there, down at the bottom, and in the stream name. Spoilers are allowed in this discussion, so kind of be warned. I'm not going to go heavy in depth on specifics on, hey, this is all that happens in the movie. But certainly it'll come up in talking about this and may come up in questions. To answer Cypher's question, since I'm not playing Infiltration, I can't really go in depth with that yet. I'll say that I loved it. I thought it was a fantastic film. It was definitely darker. It was definitely a war film and had more moral ambiguity added into it than the regular Star Wars films, the numbered Star Wars films that are much more the mythology, the fantasy, the space opera kind of stuff, where it's very much sort of the light and dark clarity, I guess, between the two. As opposed to being something where there's more moral ambiguity. I mean, yeah, there's always been, the crime lords, and you got, the smuggler with the heart of gold kind of character with Han. But this one spends some time, for instance, there's elements of, not just Cassian, but Cassian Andor in particular, talking about, the things he's had to do. Notice I'm having to reload. It's like a 6-shooter. I'm having to reload this thing manually after the shots. It doesn't do a cooldown, though, so you can fire it really rapidly. But it's talking about, the things that he's done for the Rebel Alliance, the orders that he gets. There's a point in the film where he's ordered to kill a certain character that everybody else thinks they're there to rescue, and has to answer for that to a degree. It makes for a more interesting take on the saga, or not more interesting, but an interesting, different take on the saga to actually get that type of moral ambiguity in it. And there comes a point where, part of the rationale behind really most of the film's third act comes down to basically a group of rebels who, when the rest of the Alliance is not willing to carry on the mission that they want to carry out, these people are willing to go rogue. And part of the reason is they've done horrible things in the name of the Rebel Alliance. They've been assassins, saboteurs, spies. They've done some pretty dark stuff, all because it's a cause they believed in, and they're not willing to give up now when the going gets tough. It's the idea, if... It's almost like, I would put it in the perspective of the way that I've heard some soldiers who are friends of mine who are now not deployed, either off of active duty or whatever, who talk about some of their experiences in Iraq and Afghanistan, and in seeing some of the places that they saw friends die fighting alongside them, trying to get control of, only to wind up, months or years later, all of a sudden it's back in the hands of the insurgents, or it's back in the hands of the extremists. And it's that question, well, what the hell were we doing it for? There has to be some type of good that comes out of this. We have to be able to get a victory out of this. Otherwise, everything we've done, it was just dark deeds. It wasn't, it wasn't worth it. So yeah, it's definitely love that. How do I like the CGI on the Tarkin and Leia and the reused footage? I loved it. I absolutely loved it. Did not see any kind of theory by Matt Pat, whoever that is. So feel free to provide some detail there. But yeah, I thought the CGI Tarkin was fantastic. You could tell he was CG, but that's, I think, in a lot of ways because we knew he was CG. Like, there were people in the audience that I heard talking afterwards who were talking about Tarkin, who actually thought, I kid you not, they thought that what had happened was that the Tarkin in A New Hope had been aged through makeup, and this was the real older guy. And wow, how interesting is it that the CG, or that the guy, now that he is older, so closely resembles the made-up older version of himself from the 70s. No, dude, he died years ago. That was CGI. The only thing that got me about that with Tarkin was that it wasn't Steven Stanton doing the voice work. And I thought that was kind of crappy. But I didn't know anything about the guy, I forget his first name, Guy Henry, I think is the guy's name, or Guy Henry. I had no idea that was a guy who had actually played a younger Peter Cushing in the Sherlock Holmes films. So it made perfect sense that would be a guy they would get to play him and then CGI over. As for CGI Leia, we don't see her much. It's grown on me. It looked a little bit more like something you'd see in like Uncharted 4 rather than a human being. But she only delivers the one line. It's probably a line cannibalized from A New Hope. That worked, and I loved seeing the X-Wing pilots. That was a nice shock and surprise. And they did a really good job of getting voice work to match what they were saying. Like you got the one of, I think it was Red Leader, who's trying to come in, and he says, we're about to begin our run on the shield gate. And the begin our run, for the love of God, give me freaking infiltration. As he's on his way in, he says that line. You could tell that at least part of the line was lifted from A New Hope. We're starting our run, on the trench. And they were able to match a line to the end of it to say on the shield gate. So that was really awesome, really well handled. Let's see. The Rogue One crew became the Knights of... Nope, definitely wrong. I think everybody kind of assumed going into this that the vast majority of characters, if not all of the characters, would have to die. It was a lot of cases, it was a question of who's going to die through a noble sacrifice, who's going to die through maybe betrayal, who's going to die this, that, or the other. I think that the more interesting aspect of it is the characters that weren't required to die, in essence, and the question of, well, will some of them come back? Like Admiral Raddus, did he die when the ship was being attacked, when Vader got aboard? Is he a prisoner at some point? And the fact that, you know, a lot of what happened here and the reduction of their forces helps explain why it is such a small force able to go up against the Death Star from Yavin 4 in A New Hope. So it's kind of cool to see there connecting the dots and whatnot. So there we go. Infiltration. Now, do I get to actually play? Yes, I get to play the whole thing. Okay, so for those who haven't played this and have seen the film, or those who haven't seen the film but have played this, significant differences here. You've got all kinds of wreckage above the planet from the battle taking place. You do have 2 Star Destroyers, which is important in the film, to have at least 2 Star Destroyers there by the shield gate, if you know what I mean. But the whole idea of getting the U-Wings through, I mean, the way, if I'm not mistaken, the way that this is described here for Battlefront is that you got to get a landing crew down there in order to steal the Death Star plant, or a landing crew down there to set up a diversion so you can steal the Death Star plant, which is not exactly what happens in the film. The landing crew is already down there. Rogue One is already down there. Instead, I'm just fooling around because they're going to get through. Surely they're going to get through. Yeah. But it's this idea. Let me see. Oh, it's not the rebels. They don't say the same thing. I mean, yes, some of them get through as it closes. Some of them smash like just then and manage to get onto the ground. But they're getting down there as backup support. They're not down there as the initial distraction or the initial group coming in. Like this whole part here where the rebels are trying to blow up one of the cargo ships, one of the
they are likely to be carrying
like SW-0608 that they came in on. That's not necessarily in line with it either, because the distraction in setting off the explosives and whatnot to distract from the mission inside the Citadel, I mean, that whole thing happens with Rogue One. That's not once their support arrives. The support is coming in later. They add to the distraction, absolutely, and try to get in charge of the Citadel and the transmitter and everything, but yeah, so they're kind of doing like what they did with Battle Station. You know, Battle Station, you know, A New Hope doesn't have them have to take out a Star Destroyer, get inside and recover R2-D2 with the plans, and then launch the assault, which involves multiple trenches. No, right? They're just taking something, because they have that license to tell an authentic Star Wars story without it having to be exactly canonical or fitting legends or anything like that, any particular continuity. They can kind of do whatever the hell they want and make for a fun gaming experience that doesn't necessarily match the film. Let's see. Jake, how would I rank the movie, including Clone Wars, from best to worst after seeing Rogue One? Hey, J-Caps. I'm kind of jury's still out. I want to see it again in 3D also. I saw the first in 3D, second not. I want to see it again in 3D to kind of get my thoughts together. But I think, at this point, it's jockeying back and forth for my slot as number 1, jockeying back and forth with The Force Awakens. After that, probably my old way of looking at it was prior to Force Awakens has pretty much stayed the same. Return of the Jedi, then Revenge of the Sith, although those tend to jockey back and forth. Empire, A New Hope, and then jockeying in the last couple of positions of the live-action films, Attack of the Clones and Phantom Menace. And if I need to include Clone Wars, then Clone Wars would be at the bottom. Clone Wars, the TV series, got pretty good once you got to like Season 4, Season 5, Season 6, once they did the time jump, but the Clone Wars film was pretty atrocious. Not as atrocious as some of the other episodes of Clone Wars from those first 2.5 seasons before they made the time jump, but still pretty rough. And I've lost hope at this point because of when it is. I mean, because we're already at the middle of December. This year will not be the year that we finally see the release of Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, and Revenge of the Sith in 3D on 3D Blu-ray, as Digital Bits was reporting. And I'm stuck. There we go. There's a lot of places like that on Scarif where you can fly into by accident and wind up getting stuck. So, of course, hey, JL, so here we are at the last piece of infiltration. And again, going back to the film, I think this is probably the most interesting of the differences between this and the film. Because, of course, in this case, you got the Rebels. They have 3 different sets of plans, redundant copies. They're running and trying to get at least one of those copies back to a U-wing to escape. There's no transmission at the tower. There's no separation of the group. The group is assumed to be getting the stuff and running away. But in essence, that's what the trailers showed before all of those reshoots, right? There's trailer footage of K2SO and Cassian and Jin running together, escaping the Citadel and on the beach with the tape in hand as they're trying to escape, which makes me wonder if it's possible that perhaps this was a scenario that was designed. I mean, it may just be something kind of like Battle Station, right? It may have just been designed because, hey, right, we want to do something based on this. We know it can't quite match the film, so we'll do it our own way. Or it could be that they were trying to make it more closely match the film than it turned out to, because they were basing it on earlier shoots of the film, earlier script versions of the film when they were doing all the preparing for this mode. I would bet it's probably the latter. So it's kind of an interesting thing to see how the film changed, and then this didn't change with it. Because a lot of times you'll see those types of things happen with novelizations or comic adaptations, not necessarily with games, because a lot of times games going back and showing something tend to happen later for Star Wars. Let's see. How did I like how Vader was handled, particularly at the end? I thought Vader was handled pretty well. It was nice that we got to see him and got to see leading straight into A New Hope. I thought that was a pretty sweet way of wrapping things up. I do agree that his armor looked a little off. Not amazingly so, but just a tiny bit. But it was cool to see him back, that they didn't shirk away from that. That he didn't steal the screen. He wasn't the main character, and he wasn't sidelined, per se. He showed up when it made sense for him to be part of the action. Kind of like Tarkin. They could have just said, we're not going to recreate Tarkin with CGI. We're just going to find a way for him not to be there. But then people would be asking, well, why isn't he there if he's such a big player with the Death Star and all in A New Hope? Who is this Krennic guy? Instead, having him there helps that hierarchy make sense and gives us more of that heavier connection, which I thought was cool. And to answer the question about the Clone Wars film, honestly, a lot of my first reactions to the Clone Wars film still stick with me. The animation relative to what they eventually were able to pull off with the Clone Wars was pretty rough. The character designs, kind of rough. The plot, kind of all over the place. Because it was meant to originally be 4 separate episodes with the new Padawan not necessarily leading directly into those, I don't think. Or at least meant to be a separate week of an episode of the show. But then you also have the fact that Ahsoka in her earliest incarnation was annoying as all hell. I hated Ahsoka to begin with. I find her a strong character now, and I'm glad she's part of the Star Wars canonical universe. But, I mean, up until that time jump, I really didn't warm to Ahsoka. Like, she needed to mature and stop being annoying and doing all the Sky Guy kind of shit before I was okay with her. So, yeah. I mean, I think that if you can watch Clone Wars all as one thing, then having her introduced and seeing her grow up, it's good that she has like that basic starting point. But that's kind of the same thing with Jar Jar Binks to a degree, right? If you know going into it that Jar Jar is going to be the guy who's duped in Attack of the Clones into being one to do what he thinks is right by giving emergency powers to the Chancellor that helps make Palpatine closer to the Emperor, because he's just been manipulated into it, then hey, you know, if you know that going into it, Jar Jar being the goofy dork of a character he was in Episode 1, that makes perfect sense, because he's got to be the lovable, goofy, stupid, you could never imagine doing anything evil tool and fool in order for his manipulation and altruistic nature to come through in Episode 2. But yeah, we had 3 years of seeing Jar Jar before we knew that was where the character was going, so instead it's just like, oh my god, Jar Jar drives me insane.
We need you to create a distraction for the Imperials. Locate an Imperial cargo ship and
have I been watching Star Wars on cable? I think I've said this many times before. We cut the cord long ago. We do not do cable anymore here. We've got Netflix, Hulu. We watch stuff through the Apple TV box. When I'm thinking about horror movies, I resubscribe to Screenbox. When it's time for Game of Thrones stuff, we subscribe briefly to HBO Now. We haven't had cable in ages and don't miss it at all. Or the bills for cable at all, for that matter. Yeah, I am going to switch weapons here to show you the different types for those who haven't seen them yet, but I'll have to wait till the next match to switch my star card hand. But this is, again, this is the... Let me show you here. That gun right there, that is the DT-29. This is the equivalent of Krennic's pistol, okay? You don't have armor breaker. It doesn't have that mode on it. It's just the standard 6-shooter mode. You can shoot as fast, basically, as you can click. But it does have a manual reload, unlike the other ones that are basically just cooldowns. In theory, you don't ever have to reload most of the other weapons. In fact, I think all the other weapons, but this one, let's see what that is. Blaster cannon, yeah. This one, I like it. It's a fast shooter, but you got to be real careful because that reload time kind of sucks. It is a pretty heavy reload time. But you can just boom, 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 and goodbye. Alright, and then the other one, of course, is the one you could get that is essentially Jin's blaster. Notice when you get it, it fills up all 3 of your star card slots. So you can't use your jump pack, you can't use your shield, any of that kind of stuff. But what you've got is essentially a single shot, relatively fast blaster. Or you can activate what amounts to a sniper mode, okay? Or an ion blast mode that you charge up and fire, or a rapid fire machine gun type of mode. Right, when you're playing as Jin, you can go between regular mode and this. You don't have the option of the ion or the sniper mode. Instead, you got her baton thing that she can smack people with, that you earn charges for, basically, or you can throw a sonic imploder, which I don't have on either of my star card hands right now, but you can get that sonic imploder. You still out there? You still out there, sonny boy? Oh! Krennic. You get that sonic imploder that is much stronger than the regular sonic imploder is. Okay, so that's Jin's. I'm going to switch back to Krennic's here, and then whenever I switch between, whatchamacallit, I switch between matches, or, yeah, I guess matches. I'll show you the sonic imploder, even though it's pretty horrible. Are we done with classes? Kind of. Our students officially their last day officially for the online classes was Friday, but we purposely make the last day a week ahead of the actual end of classes, which is next Thursday, or this coming Thursday, because we know there'll be people who wait to the last minute and don't have time to finish and are basically sitting there on a failing score. So what we do is we basically turn around and say, okay, for those who didn't make that deadline, let's reach out to them, give them those last few days as long as the school is okay with it. And in doing so, hopefully save some of them from winding up having to repeat these classes. And of course, any student who has like a major health issue or anything like that, those types of situations we handle individually and usually set them up with an end date that doesn't end until second semester sometime. Give them the extra time. But unlike last year, this year the teachers will not be working at all over the semester break. It'll actually be a break because we're not technically on contract. So
Hold the Imperials back
students will be able to work during the break if they have one of those like medical extensions or whatever. But if they get stuck and need a retake at it or something like that, they got to wait until the break is over. They just got to be careful if they're going to work over break. Do you still need? Yes, you will always need. There are few, if any, games I can think of that for PS4 that don't require PlayStation Plus for online multiplayer, or if you have an Xbox that don't require Xbox Live for online multiplayer. So, yeah, if you want... Oh, hey, trophy awarded for something. So, yeah, if you want to... Well, I mean, if you want to play multiplayer, yes. If you want to play just skirmish, sure. Though you're not going to have any kind of character... development. You're not going to be able to buy any of the star cards that are unlocked by progression because you won't gain a single bit of XP at all while you're playing if you're playing skirmish.
Die!
Do you think the prequels will ever get a 3D Blu-ray release? I hope so. Digital Bits was saying they expected it this year, but it didn't happen. Then again, they had a big months-long gap between the original release of The Force Awakens on home video in April and November here, October elsewhere, release of the 3D version. So I'm hoping, based on Zavvi in the UK already having a pre-order page up for an exclusive steelbook of the 3D and 2D Blu-rays of Rogue One when it finally comes out, that means we'll get that 3D release day and date with the regular release, which suggests that there's, if that's the case, it probably suggests that they're seeing the potential for the 3D releases of the Star Wars films, and maybe they'll actually put out the prequels that they've already made 3D or done 3D conversion on Blu-ray. But I think any hope of that being this year is gone now. Otherwise, they absolutely would have marketed it for a Christmas release, unfortunately. Will we get the unaltered movies in 2017? Again, not, and I've answered this one a lot. Not unless there winds up being some form of basic distribution deal that involves 20th Century Fox and Disney together. Because remember, 20th Century Fox until 2020 has the license for home video releases of the original films. So yeah. When does Fox lose physical media distribution? They do for episodes 1, 2, 3, 5, and 6 in 2020. I'm not sure if 2020 is the last year they've got it, or 2020 is when it cuts off. It's probably some date within the year that it cuts off mid-year. But then for A New Hope, they've got it in perpetuity. So there isn't a date in which they wouldn't have it. And for them, it's all releases. So even to have Disney able to put out a new box set that has Rogue One and Episode 7 or any other newer films with the original 6 would require some type of agreement between them because of A New Hope. That's actually why Disney Movies Anywhere doesn't have, or didn't have, I think it still doesn't, have A New Hope available. Because that's a Disney proprietary platform, and they don't have digital distribution rights for A New Hope, whereas they have it for everything else. So, yeah, it's going to be a while. Is it freezing on anybody else other than JL? I'm on my wired connection, so there's not much else I can do. But I'm curious if this is something that he's running into or that everybody's running into. Because it's not jerking, the game itself isn't messing up, and usually if there's a connection issue on my end, it would be the game itself that was giving me problems. And successful detonation, kaboom! Ironically, in the shot where we see that happening in the film, and we think, oh yay, boom, I played Battlefront. That's the shuttle exploding. It's actually not the shuttle, it's other explosions that are winding up distracting the Imperials, and the shuttle exploding is Bodhi getting blown the hell up. Whoops. Not sure if I should cheer it here or not. Let's see. Do you think we'll see the new fanfare for the unaltered ones with the original fanfare for 5 and 6? Again, I've answered this question. I don't know why there's an insistence on asking the same pair of questions every single time, but I'll answer again. Though I may have to just say, refer you to previous answers since I've said it so many times. You will not see the new fanfare on physical releases until at least 2020, because the new fanfare is there so that they don't have to put the 20th Century Fox logo on the fanfare. Because of that, that requires CBS Fox, that's the old name for it, 20th Century Fox to be out of the picture before that were to happen. Physical media, you won't see that till at least 2020, assuming that the distribution license doesn't get renewed, and I can't imagine that Disney would renew it with them. For A New Hope, in theory, unless 20th Century Fox were to sell those distribution rights back to Disney, because they actually own them, again, in perpetuity, you won't see A New Hope get the new fanfare probably at all.
You need to get the data tape to the extraction point.
Personally, I'd be more interested in seeing a release that just does the quiet Lucasfilm logo now, kind of like the two newer films did, and had them get rid of that god-awful new fanfare that was so bad on the digital collection, which it could be on because it wasn't physical media distribution, so it didn't have to go through 20th Century Fox. Yeah, definitely looking forward to deleted scenes on the Blu-ray. Hopefully it'll just be one big release that has all the deleted scenes on it instead of two this time, separated by months. But yeah, there were some significant, huge differences for Scarif. I mean, it gives the impression that the entire film the entire third act played out differently. But the way the mission was handled, what happens on the landing platform,
we need to secure it again.
You know, ridiculous amount of things appears to have been different. Even the visual guide still makes reference to and shows the image of Jyn being up on the tower and being stopped by or coming face to face with a TIE fighter. Except now that's not the way that it winds up playing out, because that's the end that's got the realignment thing that she's got to hit, and there's no TIE fighter sequence in it. So it'd be interesting to see. I don't know. And I think to some degree,
Jyn Erso will take the fight to the Empire.
Like it makes me wonder if something like that, where it seems like a long sequence may have been adjusted to be different, whether we're going to see like full sequences or just partial sequences, whether effect shots were completed or not. Are we going to see some of those partial effect shot completed deleted scene type things like we've seen every once in a while, like on the Complete Saga set, on StarWars.com, that kind of stuff. Be interesting. Come on, can we end this freaking match so I can show the last of the... There we go, so we can ask and you shall receive. So I can show that other star card real quick and then give you some info on ways to approach those HUT contracts before I head out of here. I know I'm waiting on my wife to be on the way back so we can eat, because I'm starving. I got my Dr. Pepper, though. Whoever created Cherry Dr. Pepper, bless you. Whoever created regular Dr. Pepper, bless you. Whoever got rid of Cherry Vanilla Dr. Pepper, I hate you. Notice that most starfighters killed. 2. Wow, this round sucked. Favorite witty line in Rogue One? Are you kidding me? I'm blind. Best laugh I've had in a Star Wars film, possibly ever. Have we got our Christmas shopping done? Mostly. But that's kind of a cop-out, because I live so far away from my family that my sister does most of the shopping, and the gifts come from both of us, and I just give her half the money for that side of the family. For my wife and I picked her up some stuff that's sitting under the tree, and we did the last of her Christmas stuff yesterday. We went to, I kid you not, we went to Babyland General Hospital, home of the Cabbage Patch dolls. She went there once as a kid. We went there once last year because she really wanted to see it again. We went back this year, and this year actually bought one of their exclusive dolls up there. And when given the option, because we went the day after Rogue One came out, given the option of, hey, which is yesterday, hey, let's name this baby with a little birth certificate thing that they give you when you're sitting there and you actually tell them what name and what birth date you want. We decided to make the name, or she decided to make the name, Jyn Erso Butler on it, which is kind of cool. And we put the birth date as the day the film came out, of 12/16/16. So, you know, I think at this point, the sheer amount spent there, I think I'm good on that. And And I think my wife is taking care of her side of the family that's here because she knows better what they're interested in. So I think I'm good. I think I'm able to sit back and just kind of coast into, coast into Christmas Day. All right, jumping in. I don't care what it is. I just want to show you guys the Sonic Imploder. This is the upgraded version of the Sonic Imploder. The Sonic Imploder looks like the grenade that we see used a few times by Death Troopers in the film. It acts nothing like the grenades that we see the Death Troopers use in the film. The one we see them use in the film is... Let's pull out the visual guide. Let's see. Death Troopers... I know we see them fairly early on. I'm trying to think of where they're... let's see. It's a Merson Munitions Fragmentation Grenade. A C-25 Fragmentation Grenade is what it is in the film. Here we've got the Sonic Imploder that looks exactly like it, but acts completely different. The Sonic Imploder, the way it's described by EA on the patch notes, is that it blinds enemies near it, kind of like a flash grenade, and it does do damage. The problem is, they talk about the way this works is, based on the distance that a character is from it, it'll either take damage or flash damage, it sounds, or the flash, it seems like. So basically, the enemy has to be standing right on it when it goes off in order to actually take damage and for you to get that kill, which is part of getting the upgraded version. That aspect of it kind of sucks. It also has a very, very long time after throwing to actually do its thing. So let me throw one out here for you. So I throw one. Hey, wait a second. Boom. Right? And it just kind of goes from there. I actually think that one detonates a little bit faster than the regular one, but that could just be that now I'm not waiting to get the kills and trying to make my way through that contract, so it feels like it's faster instead of being like, come on, frickin' explode! Which is the way that I was back whenever I was initially trying to get the thing. I want to jump into the, let's see, we're on turning point. I don't know if I'm going to be able to see it here. I want to jump into the whole HUT contract thing here. So, one of the HUT contracts that came with this is impact grenade kills. My suggestion on impact grenade kills is play on a close quarters tunnels kind of map in order to get those kills. So we're talking, for instance, play quite a bit of extraction in the Outer Rim DLC, because whether you're at Jabba's Palace, at least one of the Jabba's Palace maps, or Sullust, when you're inside that factory kind of place, the smelting area, you're going to be much, much better off trying to get the impact grenade kills because you're in close quarters in those the hallways and such. You can kind of do the twitch reaction thing, which is what a lot of people did with Destiny when it came to getting grenade kills, which is just be ready when somebody's about to kill you, as you see yourself taking damage, click the thing. Granted, it takes a while to refresh, but if somebody's coming at you from the front and trying to kill you and manages to do so, they're going to be close enough a lot of times that you're going to be able to hit them with the impact grenade kill. But it certainly took me a lot longer to get them than I expected. I used to swear by the impact grenade. Now I hardly ever use it. Right, again, there's that thing. Bow, bow, yep. I guess I can show you first person on the guns. That's what the so-called Krennic gun looks like. It does zoom a little bit. And again, you're doing that six-shooter kind of thing with it. So zoom. Boom, 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 boom. Right, and then once I die, I'll switch back to Jim's. In fact, I may need to die on purpose. There we go. Turn towards the fire. Let's see. Jins. There we go. All right, so Jins looks exactly like... I mean, they both look, realistic based on the guns that we get in the film. Hers doesn't zoom in naturally. If you do the sniper version, she pulls out the sniper end of it and zooms in, which is pretty awesome. She has to flip out the back of it and zoom in, too. Then you got the attachment there for blaster rifle, and you got the attachment there for ion. So switching between them actually takes a little bit, and you can't really tell when you're in the regular when you're in this mode here, you can sort of tell that the change is happening, but a lot of times it's in front of your body, so you can't see it. But it's really cool that, you know, you got a versatile weapon like that, and you actually see the character, at least when you're in first person, making that switch. I just don't tend to like playing in first person because it's, for me, I play better when I'm in third. Kaiser and die. Oh, dead. To answer Corey's question, how do I like Michael? I think it's Giacchino is how you say it. I may be wrong. What do I think of his score? Mostly unremarkable. There are a few bits of the score. There we go. Yay! A few bits of the score, pardon me, that I particularly like. I blame the Dr. Pepper. And I like that at times it echoes A New Hope just enough without totally echoing it, but at the same time I'm like, meh. Like, when I watch the original films, or when I watch The Force Awakens, there are themes that you can see woven through. Like, Rey's theme weaves in and out of all kinds of different parts of The Force Awakens, so regardless of the situation that you're in, a lot of times Kylo Ren's theme or Rey's theme will be playing in there somewhere. And they're really kind of, and John Williams is really kind of playing up the connection between them. Very much like, you know, like the Emperor's theme, the bum, 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 which I just did out of tune, of course. I mean, that's the la, 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 at the end of The Phantom Menace, right? He repurposes that into something more upbeat and hopeful to have that juxtaposition there. Giacchino doesn't really have much in the way of those themes. Some, but I was kind of disappointed with that, although he only had about a month to do it after he got brought in to replace the other guy who backed out. And I gotta say that when I picked up the soundtrack, that was a disappointment because the soundtrack doesn't have the end credits. I love always the, you know, the building up, iris out, bum, ba-dum, ba-dum, and then here goes the credits. Even though the credits usually are just a mixture of songs we already heard earlier in the score, to hear how they flow that together has always been one of my favorite things about Star Wars soundtracks and the Star Wars film scores. And it's not on there. It's just not on there at all if you buy the actual soundtrack that's got the score on it. So that was kind of disappointing. I will say that I like the jing kind of thing whenever it just jumps in from the Lucasfilm logo. It's kind of jarring, though I still kind of would have liked an opening crawl because there isn't any kind of setup for this. But you could argue that entire first segment that happens in 13 BBY, instead, whenever Jin is 8, hasn't turned 9 yet that year, that whole thing, that in a way was your opening crawl. It's the setup for the rest of the film. And I do like the new the theme that came out when it had the Rogue One appeared on the screen. I didn't like the Rogue One itself because I thought it just looked kind of nyeh. But the music, the burst of music that go with it, I particularly liked. Can I recommend some games for the PS4? I will cycle back around to that in a second. How good is the Rogue One DLC? It's about on par with the other DLCs. So, for better or worse, 1 3-stage mode, but it gets repetitive very quickly because there's only one mode in space, one or two, I think it's one map for the second segment, and 2 maps to choose from for the last segment. And they got other modes that can be played on it. Krennic is good. Jin is okay, not as good as Krennic is from an ability standpoint. Otherwise, didn't really add a whole heck of a lot. All right, so going back to what I was saying about the HUT contracts, just to give you some tips if you're trying to do this, or if you're just about to get the DLC and you're trying to hit the DLC ones. Scroll. Okay, so, all right, so Jin's solution, which is the one to get Jin's 3-mode weapon there. Kills with blaster pistols, not that big a deal. Hey, Creepinator. Kills with blaster rifles, not that big of a deal. Kills with targeting rifles, not that big of a deal. So in a lot of ways, Jin's solution is the easiest one to do. It's just about persistence and making sure as soon as you wind up finishing out one of those sets of kills, move on to the different weapon type. Otherwise, you're wasting time. You can do that if you can on top of Krennic's offense, or Krennic's offense, hard to say. If you wait and do the blaster pistol part of Jin's solution until you got them both going, because you need 50 blaster pistol kills as opposed to 25 for Krennic's part of it. 10 personal shields is easy. Just have 10 charges on your shield and just activate them. You don't even have to take damage with them. Just activate the freaking thing. 25 kills as Krennic. If you're playing as Krennic, I would suggest hit L1, turn on Armor Breaker, get a little bit back from the fight, and just pick people off. very, very quickly. You can do kills with Krennic in Heroes vs. Villains to get this, but it's slow going and you're going to go through a lot of matches to pull it off. My suggestion, new DLC hero or villain is always the last one off to the right when you go into Heroes vs. Villains. As soon as it goes between matches, be tapping with the right button on the D-pad so that if you get chosen to be a hero for that match or a villain, as soon as it's in, it zips to the side, and the moment you see that hit Krennic or Jin, hit X. Select. Because you're going to be racing against other people to get to play as those characters to hopefully get the kills to do for these contracts. Thankfully, at least right now, if you're playing on regular Heroes vs. Villains back on the main games choices, there are going to be some people playing who don't have access to the DLC and can't use those characters, so there's less people you're competing with to get it. Heaven forbid what's going to happen after the mass release as opposed to season pass release. So Krennic's Offense, not a huge difficulty. It's just that kills as Krennic that's going to be slow and take some time. Grenadier 1. Let's see. Grenadier 1, we've got Flash 25 players. Again, that is the flash grenade. It has nothing to do with whipping out your junk. That's not too bad, especially if you're playing in some of those close quarters types of things or a point defense thing like a Walker Assault. Get around an area where there's a bunch of characters and just throw it. Kills with the impact grenade, that's the pain in the butt. Again, I would suggest close quarters. Something like playing Extraction is a good place to try to get those. You pretty much got to hit them dead on or right next to them to kill somebody with an impact grenade, though. Especially with the new armor mechanic that they added into the game. As for Grenadier 2, this was the one that was a complete pain in the butt. And I was actually like, woo! And like jumping up and down because I was actually playing while I was standing when I finally got this to happen. 30 kills playing as Jin. It's not as easy to get them with Jin as it is, say, for Krennic, I would say. But if you can get the Jin power up, then bust out the rifle mode and use that, because that seemed to be a faster way of getting kills, unless you stay way back from the action and use the sniper one, but that's going to take you a while because you can't get a lot of kills in one use of it. It's just the one shot. Kills with Sonic Imploder. Try to use Jin's if you can. Hers will kill with a larger radius. Otherwise, you're going to have to hit somebody right at their feet. I would suggest playing a mode where people are likely to get on a blaster cannon and drop it at the feet of the guy standing at the blaster cannon because they're not moving and are unlikely to move between the time it lands at their feet and when it explodes. Because the regular Sonic Imploder explosion time is kind of slow, which actually kind of makes me wonder, did they change it or am I just imagining things? Let's see. Where is Sonic Implode? There it is. That's the cooldown, I guess, that makes a difference. Huh. Okay. Maybe it's just me. It just seemed like it was taking forever. My goal, for what it's worth, by the way, now, is I want to get to the point where I reach level 100, even though there is nothing left to do to get there, now that all the HUT contracts are done. But I want to be able to get that Shore Trooper Captain. How about locked? Be easier. Get me to locked. Clickety, 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 clickety. And, yeah. You can tell it's a Shore Trooper Captain because of a slight difference in the pieces over the top of his hips and the blue that is across more of his chest. That is really the main distinguishing features, I think a little bit on the side, too, of a Shore Trooper Captain versus just a regular Shore Trooper. And, of course, Shore Troopers are the default on Scarif, but anywhere else you're not going to default to a Shore Trooper. Or a Coastal Defense Trooper, or whatever they were originally called. Was I surprised that... I just trying to remember the question. Was I surprised that there wasn't a big release for the... announced at least yet for the 40th anniversary? Yeah, I'm kind of surprised. Although, interestingly, you realize that actually the 40th anniversary of Star Wars hitting the pop culture with the story of A New Hope being told was actually this year. Right? Because a novelization of A New Hope came out in 76 to help build up hype for the movie later. So, technically, happy 40th anniversary, Star Wars. But the film itself, of course, didn't hit until 77. Let's see... What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to, in case you're wondering, like, why is he going back into the match? He wasn't going to do a whole lot of this. I'm trying to get it so that I have that second segment on a particular map. Because I forget which, I think it's landing pad 13, so I want to show you where it's easy to get the Krennic power-up if you are playing as the Empire. Because for Jyn, I found that it's harder to find a power-up to become Jyn than it is for Krennic. And of course I jump in, and it's the last piece of the battle. But that means the next match it's going to be Imperial, so hopefully it'll be on the map that I need to show.
We're almost at the extraction
deaths
point.
that impacted
Hurry it
the
up.
most.
Enemies in the
in
area.
Rogue One. Let's see. Oh, I forgot. I still got Jin's thing. Okay, well, we won anyway. Fantastic. Death that impacted the most. Probably either Jyn Cassian going together and the closeness there and the fact that they didn't play it up as a romance type thing, but there were aspects of it that leaned in that direction. He tells her about, your father would have been proud, and then she dies alongside him. My wife, though, she turned away for an instant and didn't realize the wave of energy and shit had actually killed them. She actually thought they were still alive at the end of the film until I told her otherwise in the car, and she was like, damn! But I think K2SO probably, because K2SO, it's a noble sacrifice type thing. Although, I will say that I think probably tied with K2SO for me is Galen. And you might be like, well, Galen, what the hell, right? Man, it sent me to Walker Assault. Son of a... Well, let's see. Let's see what... I don't think Scarif Beach... Actually, Scarif Beach may be the one I need to show you, so I may be able to do it even if I'm not doing Infiltration. I forget which map it is that's got the easy spawn point for Krennic. Or power-up pickup for Krennic. But I think having read Catalyst... Getting a sense of, this is a guy who's somewhere on the autism spectrum. Learning what we've learned about the character, I find it interesting that you think you're about to get this great reunion between father and daughter. You know how much he's done to try to protect her, only it turns out that he dies and is only able to speak to her for a moment, and that it's a death that happens not because of the Imperials, it's a death that happens because of the rebels. And yet, in order to carry out her father's wishes, in essence, you don't wind up having Jyn just turn on the rebels because of his death. So, a lot of things about that make it a poignant death for me. Okay, so let's see. I'm trying to get back to the... I can just jump out of the thing anyway. Let's see.
Heads up! Enemy soldiers sighted. Protect the base from any Imperial water.
Yes! You should probably... Coming in, spoiler, there's a movie called Rogue One I'm going to leave so I don't hear spoilers. I'm not entirely sure where that came from. But okay. Alright. I'm trying to get over to... Oh, I'm going to get killed by these guys before I can show you, though. I need to switch my gun so I got my friggin' jetpack back, because as soon as you switch to Jin's gun, you're missing all your other star cards. Get the heck out of here.
Hold that uplink station. The Y-Wings need it to zero in on your location.
Hold that station. In other words, don't touch that dial. Right? Hold that station. Oh, I can be Jyn. Probably. Okay, well, anyway. Oh, shit! I already got another power-up. Better make sure I get the right one and activate it. Jyn Erso. Here we go.
Reckless, aggressive,
yeah, here's the thing, though. Team -1, Harmy, those restorations, because they weren't done with any kind of legal authority, I don't think they could actually use those as a basis for making any kind of official release. They'd have to do their own restoration process. Alright, so notice here again, she's got her regular pistol. It does not have a sniper mode. It does not have an ion mode. You do have the blaster rifle mode, but that's it. And it is not something that has a cooldown. You just switch back and forth. She's got her schmack. By the way, the things that are on her back near the end of the film, those are like light things to wave and show a shuttle where to land, is all that those are. And she's got her explosive, albeit one that is more powerful than the standard. So,
Not a moment to waste. Your empire will be defeated.
Okay, I'm trying to get to the where it is that you can get the Krennic power up more easily. All right, so jump into a game of infiltration. When you get to the second part of infiltration on this map, the Empire will spawn over here somewhere. Run to this bridge, but stop. Wait for about a minute to minute and a half into the match, and the Krennic power-up will be right here. So at least that makes it a little bit easier for you to get the Krennic kills, even if it's not necessarily going to be easier to get Jin kills. Every once in a while, the Krennic power-up will show up somewhere other than there, but the vast majority of matches, I saw it spawn right in that spot. Jin, I'm not sure of. Whoa!
Let's try this one. I'm coming for you.
Oh, whoa!
Win the empire.
You came in that thing here braver than I thought. Ah! All right, well, I think it killed one of the guys. Or came close. I will kill you with a smack! Smack! I said smack!
I will fight your empire to the end.
All right. Just running around is Jin here. As I hope for the... Maybe what we'll find is that there's an announcement of it, perhaps, at... or announcement of something about original cuts and a deal with 20th Century Fox or something at Celebration in Orlando in April. The first celebration my wife and I will actually be able to go to. We are so friggin' stoked.
Not backing down.
She wants to also try to get to Disney so we can try out the new Star Tours, but I'm like, my God, woman, are we made of money? But we're gonna try anyway. Oh, for fuck's sake, my work phone keeps going off, even though students do not have initial classes and we're not in work hours right now. So I will pull that up in a second. It's the one time you probably heard me say anything like that here, but I'm only going to be on here for the rest of this match and then I'll bail. I'll Organa it, so to speak. I shall bail. Oh, shore troopers on the shore! Not to die as Jin.
They didn't see it coming.
Oh, Sonic Imploder kill. See what I mean? It's much easier to get a Sonic Imploder kill with Jin because the damage radius is so much larger. I mean, it's not huge, but it's certainly better. I'd love to see a 4K release, but there's the fear, of course, in my hand that if we get a 4K release, I'm going to have to buy a 4K TV, and I'm going to be stuck. Let's see. JL, you have to tell me which line that is that you're talking about as I quickly grab this thing and as I'm dead. Why am I getting calls? Ah, shit. Nope. Yes, I do actually have to answer this. Come on, come on, come on. What is up? There we go. Okay. I did not hear that go off at all sitting there, so that's a little freaky. Okay, anyway. Back to killing. Back to the killing and white uniforms.
Watch for Imperial counterattack.
Why did it... I just hit R1. Why did it not throw my Imploder? A lot of times you get just the enemy blinded. That's the downside of that one. Okay, let's... Oh, for... I am actually going to have to take that, so I am going to have to head out, guys. I apologize. I tried texting, and I'm still getting phone calls every few seconds, so I'm going to have to head. I'm going to have to jump out of the match here. In any event, expect a vlog in the near future that's going to have my Rogue One thoughts. Of course, you'll be able to find more of that kind of stuff, including the year in review and whatnot. On Star Wars Beyond the Films at StarWarsReport.com. You'll hear more thoughts on the Scarif DLC on Cloud City Casino when we get to it later in the year. Later this year, that is. Again, Cloud City Casino at StarWarsReport.com as well. And I'll be back with more content and hopefully more streams in the near future. But for now, I got to split. I knew I was going to be running tight on time anyway, but apparently I'm much tighter on time than I thought. So I appreciate you from popping in. Feel free to drop comments on this once it processes. We can continue the conversation or elsewhere, Facebook and whatnot. Thank you all for watching, and I will apparently make this call back. Thanks, guys. And I appreciate indulging my need to take care of this. Thanks.